There are more of us. Hello, what have we here? And welcome, Nidra, to the There Are More of Us show.
Howdy.
How's it going?
It's going really great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We've known each other for I think almost 3 years now, somewhere around there, and yeah,
Oh.
yeah, right. So obviously I'm familiar with you and the work you do. But for those that don't know, what kind of content do you make?
I am a cosplayer, an Ahsoka Tano cosplayer and commentator on Star Wars, uh, mostly analyzing stuff from an overthinker and film school dropouts perspective.
And I mean, you have been recognized by Rosario Dawson too. Like we can't underplay that.
Yeah, no, that was, easily top 200 coolest things that's ever happened to me, and definitely top 10 coolest things that's happened to me in, like, the past 5 years, and then, like, top 2 things that's happened to me as a cosplayer.
Well, see, that's high praise. Uh, so what's your Star Wars story?
So I've always sort of been aware of Star Wars, and I dated a guy who was super duper into Star Wars, like huge, huge fan. And so I was like, yeah, no, I love Star Wars too. And I was like really young at that point. And so that's when
Mhm.
I just sort of like it became someone who liked Star Wars. Um, but it wasn't until the pandemic that I, like, actually, like, saw Star Wars and then something in me broke. Like, you know how you can have something in your life for so long and then all of a sudden, like, you notice it's there?
Mhm.
It was during the pandemic that my roommate at the time was watching Clone Wars, and I looked up at the screen and I was like, "Whoa, who's that little girl that looks like me?" And he was like, "Oh, that's, Anakin's Padawan, Ahsoka." And I was like, "Anakin has a Padawan?" And so I started watching and immediately got sucked all the way in, and I had seen a couple of, like, Star Wars deep dive videos before that,
Mhm.
so I had already known that there was, like, a richer story bubbling underneath, but I had never, like, been pulled in to actually sit there and start picking it apart like that, and that was when I sort of just, like, watched it just long enough to start picking up on those beautiful little things that make Star Wars what it is, and especially with Ahsoka's story and just sort of watching her grow and learning how to, um, be more mindful of not just her own actions, but how her own actions affect other people.
Mhm.
And how she could possibly have more influence on people than she realizes, even in throwaway kind of ways with like things like how she interacts with droids and stuff like that. And then I was doing like little Zoom dance parties with my friend group, and they had a party one time that I decided I was going to finally try to cosplay Ahsoka for, and everyone liked it, and I did it again, and, my friend was like, "Hey, why don't you, like, post that on Reddit?" I was like, no, I'm good." And then I had a drink, and I was like, "Fine, I'll do it." And then and then I went to bed, and I woke up, and I was on the front page of Reddit, and I was like, "Whoa, people actually like this."
Mhm.
And, uh
As they should.
Yeah, sure. And then so I started, hanging out on TikTok and engaging with that and posting on there. And then when I started posting my cosplay content, I kinda had that whole concern that, like, "Oh, it's gonna be one of those, like, ain't nobody come to see you, Otis," kinda things if I ever post out of cosplay. And then one day I just did it, and it turned out that people actually, like, for some reason wanted to hear me talk about Star Wars, and, that was, like, great because that's I could do that for hours, and so I started doing my analysis and stuff like that, and then I've met a lot of amazing people, got a lot of great opportunities, and reconnected with a lot of, like, creative parts of myself that I had kind of chunked in a closet somewhere, and here we are.
Yeah. I remember I met you through in a comment section of Master Allen's page. Shout out to Level Up Lightsabers better than a stick. But and then I saw your Ahsoka cosplay and I was like, instant follow.
Thank you. I think your name alone is one of the coolest things in the world. Just sort of like the juxtaposition of like Star Wars and something that's such a normal day-to-day real life need in our galaxy. Well, they have them in Star Wars too, but just like the sort of jarring to see like lawyer, and then you go to your page, you're like, oh, this dude's actually a lawyer.
Or, as sometimes when people read it on the tiny little TikTok font, they'll be like Star Wars Slayer. Wait, no, no, that's not Slayer. And I was like, it's lawyer. Okay, it's
Like,
fine.
I know I study Star Wars law.
Yeah, yeah, just specifically Star Wars law, which we don't
Yeah.
have a lot of. We need more. Where's the Republic
No.
Constitution? That's what I need.
I f I feel like that is definitely an unexplored region of Star
Hmm.
Wars.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we get the criminal underworld, then we got to get the legal world. They go hand in hand. They're breaking laws, but who's going to prosecute 'em? We need
I'm starting to notice, like, now that you kind of point that out, there's, like, gross inconsistencies in how criminals are treated. Wait.
that. Hmm. You're catching the vision.
But yeah, no, it's like it doesn't seem like galactic law is very consistent throughout Star Wars, and, huh,
We need
interesting
it.
stuff.
Maybe we'll
W
get that more with the new Republic. After the sequels.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, definitely at this point in Star Wars, there's a whole lot that, can be explored now that we're kind of deviating from the Skywalker saga and getting into, some of the old and some of the new, and that's really exciting stuff to me.
Yeah. Space is the final frontier. Oh wait, that's a
I
different
think that's the
franchise.
wee woo, wee woo.
Yeah, this well, nope. They're more of a show is now canceled because I mentioned Star Trek.
So, this just in.
This just in, the Star Wars police are coming for me. Sorry, Disney. Sorry, Mickey Mouse.
Right, coming from me too, because apparently I said the law is inconsistent. It's like,
Yeah.
"Ma'am, that's not how laws work."
So what does Star Wars mean to you?
Star Wars means examining the balance between what's concrete good, what's abstract good, what's concrete evil, and what's abstract evil. Like, it's sort of this, like, constant, examination of these things. That's the philosophical answer, right?
Hmm.
But for me as a person, Star Wars means friendship. Star Wars means family. Star Wars means, um, having a home to come to, like, having people that are always gonna be there no matter what, who asterisk. But, like, having a group of people where you always have something to talk about, like where there's the sort of the communal table where your glass is always full, your plate's always full, and there's always something to sustain you. And I got to enjoy that quite a bit since joining the Star Wars community. And I don't know if there's any other fandom or space like it, but it taught me more than just, like, about Star Wars, the franchise, and I think that's something that's really sort of frustrating when you talk about it with, like, non-Star Wars people. Like,
Hmm.
or people who just watch it and don't engage with any communities, they kinda don't understand that there's a lot more than just movies, and there's a lot more than just, like I don't know, there's a lot more to it, when they say like Star Wars is for everyone, they don't mean like, I don't know, in the way that it seems like that is. It means like there's something in Star Wars for everybody.
Mhm.
And like if you look, you can find something regardless of who you are, regardless of what you need. Like I've been on every end of like every emotional spectrum, and then there's something for it, you know, like you've got Young Jedi Adventures when you just need to watch something really quickly and, you know, get a quick little serotonin boost, or,
Mhm.
you know, you if you just want to feel very little like joy, you can watch Andor. Um or like, you know, um and I'm kidding about that because I could just throw hard eyes forever at BB-8 or BB-8, geez, B2 emo.
Yeah.
We woo, Star Wars, please. But yeah, no, it's just like there's something for everyone in all the Star Wars, and it's just Star Wars. So what Star Wars means to me is that communal sense of always being able to have a full plate, have a full heart, and always have somewhere always to have somewhere to run your mouth.
Yep, because there's no abundance of things to talk about when it comes to Star Wars.
Yeah, there is a bottomless pit of um the pit is bottomless for you to throw your opinions down, so you do not have to worry about it coming back up. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so you've obviously been a Star Wars fan for a minute, and I know you've had some interesting experiences with people you've been able to meet, people you've been able to interact with. So we're going to get
Mhm.
down to some of your favorites.
Ooh.
So kicking it off with the literary world, what is your favorite Star Wars book?
My favorite Star Wars book is Thrawn Alliances by Timothy Zahn.
Hmm.
It's a fantastic book that does one of my favorite things that happens in storytelling when you have parallel stories at the same time, but it just takes that and kicks it up like 4,000 notches.
Hmm.
And it made me love and respect Timothy Zahn as an author even more because that's really hard to pull off. Where he's got like the A and B, but it's almost like the A and B stories are like A1 and A2, and then there's like a B2 and a B2 story, B1 and a B2 story. Like it's
Hmm.
just it's one of the most chaotic um in terms of parallel storytelling. It was one of the most chaotic things that I've read in that kind of sense, but it's beautifully done. It's cohesively done, coherently done. He's such a beautiful writer in terms
Hmm.
of like, you know, lip twitching and all of that aside. He is incredibly gifted at describing the inner workings of Thrawn in a way that makes you sort of kind of puts you almost in the driver's not quite driver's seat, the passenger seat of his mind.
Hmm.
And so you're getting to see everything, every choice that he makes, without him necessarily saying out loud everything. You get to hear some of the things. And then for some spots, you get to kind of feel like the other people in the room. I don't think there's ever really any moments where you hear everything he's going to do and he's like actively thinking out things he's noticing in real time. I think that's really interesting. And then Anakin's in the story too, and then there's the parallels between the parallel stories of Anakin and Vader. And it's just, not to get too into that. And that's not a spoiler. I think that's really obvious in the covers and all that sort of stuff. But
Hmm.
it's a, it's a beautiful triumph in storytelling for a number of reasons, but it's a great way to sort of learn a bit more about how much Anakin was in Darth Vader too. In addition to just being a, you know, a character study on Thrawn, you learn quite a bit about Vader through that book too.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that's usually not the popular choice when it comes to the Thrawn trilogies, and they did just do the comic of it as well, but I think they only did four comics, and it kind of ended like two-thirds through the story.
Yeah,
unless
so yeah,
yeah.
I'm waiting it out. I'm not very good at being patient, for that kind of stuff, so I think I'm just gonna, like, wait and then purchase, like, the the big boy collection for it, but, everything that I've seen from it looks amazing because I'm always down for, like, visual Thrawn.
I've been waiting to see what the Grisk look like for years, and now I know. So yeah.
Spoilers.
I'm not
Yeah.
telling you what they look like.
Okay, good. Do not.
Yeah.
I just do not do that to me. As
No,
I'm
no,
very
no.
fortunate I've missed it or people have casually posted it and I had no idea what I was looking at.
Yeah, it wasn't that big. I think I only saw a few people talking about it, and then it just kind of went to the next news cycle. That's what I was. I That's the one thing I wanted to know because it was just like I'm still hoping they show up in live action.
Uh,
I'm hoping. I might not be right, but I'm hoping.
I'm up in the air, you know? I don't know. I want them to tell whatever story suits whatever they're doing best.
Hmm.
Like, let's not shoehorn stuff in. Let's not like I'm over like fan service. Like I let's not do it. Let's ignore everything. Just serve the story. Give us more than like one digit number episodes
Hmm.
and a writer's room and you know, plenty of time to flesh out a good story, and I'll take whatever at this point.
Yeah, give us like 10 to 12 episodes, solid 40-minute run times, not like
Yeah,
32 here, 45 here, 54 here, 33 here, like just
yeah,
consistent show times, 10 to 12
yeah.
episodes.
I yeah,
We're not going to complain about more Star Wars. Like some people will, that's fine. Let them complain,
yeah,
but we're not going to complain about
ignore them. But yeah, no, definitely, I think so many stories could have benefited from just more episodes, and that's
it. Mhm.
I'm the biggest Book of Boba Fett I'm the lone Book of Boba Fett stan. Um, but I love that show so much, and the thing that I think was, the biggest issue with it was just that it didn't have enough, d mm, it had a few things, but, ins and outs and what have yous. But the biggest thing was essentially that it didn't have enough room to tell the big, beautiful story, I think, that was bubbling underneath there, because they made some of my favorite choices in that and
Mhm.
introduced some of my favorite, discussion points, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Droids' rights.
It's a short book, pretty short book.
Yeah. The magazine of Boba Fett.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. The novelette,
The
the novella of Boba
the pamphlet of Boba
Fett.
Fett.
So Star Wars is filled with great characters across all the years from 77 to today in 2024, the characters that get introduced today. So who are three of your favorite characters from any era, legends or canon?
Okay, we're gonna start off with the not obvious ones. They're all I was trying to pick a wild card. Darth Maul.
Hmm.
Just everything that they've done with him has been really fascinating. That was just the fact that he was initially this sort of, uh, I don't say throwaway, but like, because he was really cool and he was
Hmm.
made quite the impact. But yeah, he was kind of one and done in the movies. And to bring him back in such a compelling way and make such a fascinating character out of him and like genuinely empathetic. Uh, is one of the wildest turnarounds I think is that I've ever seen in anything ever, and he's somehow a babe, and I, like, still have not been able to reconcile how they did that, but, like, they did it, and so he's, like, kind of a fox and spider at one point even, um, but yeah, no, he's just this incredibly sympathetic character in the way that he's, um driven by I wanna say regret and like, fear and, like, he's all of these things that there's, like, warnings about in regards to the dark side. He is just such a beautiful little, burrito that, um so I love him for that. He's poor baby all the way down. The second or we're just go real obvious with it, Thrawn.
Mhm.
He's a like, it's such a difficult situation to talk about Thrawn with people who only know him from live action,
Mhm.
and, like, Rebels, because he is a really complex character, and if you look at the people that, like, are really big Thrawn stans, it seems almost, like, incongruous because it's like, if the ones who are like, "Oh, we love the new books and all that sort of stuff," and then you're like, "Oh, the people who know him from, like, the shows, and then the people who know him from, like, the EU books," you're, like,
Mhm.
seeing this, like, What do you lot have in common?"
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, Thrawn is a beautiful, illustration of the experience of a minority in, an oppressive setting and a minority functioning within an oppressive setting and having to, like, work twice as hard to get, like, as far, whatever, all of that sort of stuff. And there's even the added bit of, bringing your homie with you,
Mhm.
and, like, there's just there's all of that and just being misunderstood every single step of the way, being questioned, being second guessed a lot. And then there's just how he naturally aligns himself with a lot of women is fascinating. Like, there's just a whole lot that's really interesting about Thrawn's character. Um, it's there's so much. He's an art nerd, culture nerd, music nerd,
Mhm.
like, of course. And then, of course, we've got Ahsoka. And I think Ahsoka is a beautiful illustration of growth, um, standing on business,
Yeah.
making your decisions, living with your decisions, and not letting regret send you down a dark path, not letting the need for revenge send you down a dark path,
Mhm.
accepting that things have happened and there's nothing you can do to undo or asterisk um, all of that. But then also there's sort of like a beautiful story of friendship and leadership with her, where she kind of makes friends wherever she goes and inspires people wherever she goes. And there's this pureness about her that isn't preachy or judgy necessarily. There's just, hello, we're here together. This is what needs to happen for everyone to be okay. And let's like do what needs to be done so we can serve the greater good.
Mhm.
And she's very good at being selfless, but also, I think it came from the devastating, like, realization that her actions and her decisions can impact people, and her realizing that really, really early. So, as she got older, she was considering everything, every possible outcome, every person in the room, and how what she does affects them eventually. And it's sort
Mhm.
of something that ends up making her make kind of shaky decisions sometimes that don't make sense immediately because, you know, there's an obvious answer here, but no, this person will get hurt.
Yeah.
So it's just it's she I think she's a lot like me and that maybe she overthinks things a bit, but also, there's this understanding that despite the fact that you are small, you have limited, abilities or whatever, um, you have also people around you who are willing to help you. You have a community, you have friends, and you can be a good friend to them and you can help them out. And then, but with the power of friendship, you can take down the empire.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I just sort of love that with her, where it's like she's got bottomless optimism, but without, um it's not delusional optimism, you know, it's not head in the sand optimism.
Mhm.
It is the kind of, like, seeing the forest and not focusing so much on what's happening in front of you immediately and staring further down the road, and um, I think that's one of my favorite things about her is learning to be patient in the face of chaos.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta learn on the fly when you're a child soldier.
But also, if that's all you've ever known, I think that also, like, something I would have loved to be a bit of, or we've still got time, I guess, with the show, but, like, learning how Ahsoka adapted, um, to like, to life outside of the Jedi Order, because we got to see a little bit of that when, she walked away the first time and
Mhm.
was, you know, with the sisters and all of that, but, like, learning that there are people who don't think things through like you do and don't have the same, moral compass, and that it applies on every single level. It's not just big bad guys who look like big bad guys. Sometimes it's, you know, people who are close to you, and, like, because I don't necessarily think beyond Anakin. Like, so, and then also exploring, like, how she became comfortable ever getting close to anyone again too,
Yeah. I think
because yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think we need more flashbacks. I was expecting
Yeah.
a bit of flashbacks, and I'm not talking about like Clone Wars flashbacks. I'm talking about like post Rebel season 2 flashback
Yeah.
when, you know, she re-ups with Sabine, she decides to train Sabine, you know, what she
Mhm.
does afterwards. Because there's a part of that that needs to be explored. And I guess the implication with Balin talking to Sabine was that I don't know whether Ahsoka wasn't there when Sabine's family died, or whether they were training and Ahsoka said don't go. Which I don't
Yeah.
see Sabine being like, okay, like every
Yeah.
time someone says don't go in the midst of your training, every Star Wars protagonist immediately
Every
goes.
single one.
Every single one. Like, so I don't think Sabine would be any different. So yeah,
Yeah.
so just more clarity. You know,
Yeah.
what was Ahsoka doing during those like 9 to 10 years prior to when we see her in The Mandalorian?
Yeah. And that was another more, like, more episodes things.
Mhm.
Like, I just feel like if there was more time to sort of explore that, like, I'd liked Ahsoka as a show overall, but it was one of those things where I was like, "Man, it really would've been cool if we could have gotten more of what she's been up to." Like, Tales of the Jedi helped with a lot of that, filling in, some of
Mhm.
that and giving us some cool little snippets of that, but it would have been really neat to see, like, how we got to, where we got to,
Yeah, or give us a
especially with her
book.
and Sabine. Yeah.
Yeah, or give us a book, or give us a comic, something.
Yeah, yeah,
We got various mediums to play with. Give us
yeah.
an audio drama. I would like that audio.
Dear
Like,
God.
granted, I love the High Republic audio dramas, and I love the High Republic, but I also love, like, give us some audio dramas, like, set in the different eras, you know, like, with some other characters. Love to see it. Would
Yeah.
love to see it.
I think a lot of people are, and something I'm hearing a lot from the, like, normie side of the world that's not, like, aggressively online, where they're just sort of like, "Look, I have a life. I have kids, I have a job, I have, yeah, I have to like, company softball," or whatever, you know? They're like, "I have stuff to do. I cannot, like, read books and read comics and watch shows and
Mhm.
all of this stuff to, like, figure out what's going on in my favorite Star Wars story." And I have conflicted feelings about that, because I know that's, like, really cool for, like, me to, like, have this bottomless well of content, but I also understand that we are reaching a bit of a critical mass where it's getting difficult, to, like, keep any of these stories sort of followable for the average person
Mhm.
once they start leaking into other media, and you're like, "Oh, you have to watch this cartoon to know what's happening in this show." and then you need to read this book to know what's happening here, and then it's like it that does become unsustainable for, like, a common person.
Yeah. Although, like, I do think they try to help at least when it's like the animated shows, and they'll throw it on Disney Plus, like the
Yeah,
Ahsoka Essentials or the Sabine
yeah,
Essentials or something like that. I was very surprised they didn't do a recap at the beginning of Ahsoka, like 2 or 3 minutes of like the animated, like key pieces, since
yeah,
they do that for other things. So
yeah. And I definitely think that would be beneficial in the future because it's getting to the point where, commoners are, being a bit and granted, like, I know a lot of Star Wars fans' knee-jerk reactions are, "Well, too bad," but,
yeah.
it's it that sucks for people to have to deal with when a lot of time it's just life happening and they don't
Hmm.
really get a chance to, like, keep up with stuff. Like, I'm not finished with The Bad Batch.
Happens. It
Like
happens. I'm not gonna hold you down to it. Like it happens, and then sometimes it's like one of those situations where like the High Republic, like, okay, let me wait, a few months for more things to come out, and then now let me just start like getting back into it, so it doesn't like maybe not too long before the next batch of things comes out, so then I can be like caught up, because sometimes you wait like a year and a half between stories, you're like, what happened?
Right.
Like,
It's
who are
so, like,
you?
yeah. It's so, like, I don't know, and then also when you've got also the video games too. Yeah, like, there's just so
Mhm.
much, that, it's great and it's fun and it feels like a bottomless, like, all you can eat buffet of good stuff, but at the same time, like, certain storylines might need to be tethered to certain mediums.
Yeah. I picked up a High Republic comic that came out this week, and it's focusing on like my favorite character, but one of the side characters is um like, I don't remember them actually being in something until like maybe early in phase 1, and it's the Chancellor of the Republic's son. So it's like a fairly important person, and I'm just like,
Right.
"Oh, I forgot they existed." It's like,
What?
"It's been a couple years, buddy. How you been?"
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very interested in these next two questions for you. You being you, of course. What is your favorite quote from Star Wars?
Oh. Um, trying to pull away from there was the Anakin quote of, "I'm haunted by the kiss you never should have given me." We're not gonna that's not my answer.
Why not? It could be it's a perfectly
It's
fine answer.
because if for of all Star Wars, um, I think I wanna say, for me, size matters not comes up so much in my life for a number of reasons, but it's because it's applicable to so many things,
Mhm,
right? Um, it's not doesn't just, like, apply to the fact, like, I'm this, like, tiny person and, like, everything feels so much bigger than me and, like, taking on big tasks, sometimes can feel overwhelming, but also it applies to regardless of how small of a thing you think you might be dealing with. Um, and if someone else is going through something much seemingly bigger, that doesn't necessarily mean that how it's affecting you and how you feel isn't valid.
mhm,
You know, the size of or the visible size or the implied size or inferred size of whatever you're dealing with um, does not matter directly in regards to how it affects you.
mhm,
And so there's that. And then there's also just sort of like, oh, you just got a gift from someone and it's not a big thing, but it's like, "Oh,
mhm,
size matters not." Like, "You wrote me a poem, thanks, that's amazing. That came
mhm.
from your heart, like, that came
Yeah.
from you." Like, versus, like, buying this thing. Like, it's just something that's so aggressively applicable to everything in life, like so many things in Star Wars can be.
Mhm.
And like I say things like that. I quote movies and stuff, specifically Star Wars, all the time in the stupidest context. But that's one that accidentally became serious a few times when like talking to friends, and they're like, "Yeah, but I don't know, man. People have like real problems and all this going on, and someone's like." Like having a serious ass moment, and I'm like, oh well, size matters not.
I mean, when you're talking about, like no matter the size of the obstacle, it doesn't, necessarily determine how it's going to affect you. You just think about, like you've had a long day, it's been a hard day. You're going to walk into your house or your apartment or whatever, and you pull out your keys and you drop them. So then
Right.
you look up, yeah, just throw your shoulders back and just the longest, heaviest sigh just to pick
Yeah,
up your keys. Just that's all you have to do. Like there could be literally nothing else in your hand, but it's just the
absolutely.
just one more thing on
Yeah,
this day.
yeah. Or on the flip side of that, you could be having the worst day, and someone could do the tiniest thing. Like someone could, say, "Oh, hey, I like your shirt," or whatever, and then that could like flip your
Mhm.
entire day. Like it's just putting like attaching this idea of understanding that okay, there's the perceivable size of things, but that's not always it doesn't always translate evenly to the impact that it has, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's like just like in physics experiments where you have like two cubes of the same weight that are like different sizes. It's like that's sort of a great visual representation of that phenomenon of just like, yeah, I know it's not a big deal to you, but I think this was a big deal. So thanks.
Yeah.
So never underestimate your actions,
Mhm.
because something that you don't think is a big deal might be a huge deal for someone else.
Next, we have something
Next.
that is well, no, 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 no. It's next to something that's near and dear to your heart, which is music. So what is your favorite musical piece from Star Wars?
Um, so I have a couple of answers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, like obviously Duel of the Fates, whatever. And then the whole reason I'm like hand waving it off is because like, everyone appreciates this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the Imperial March is my favorite piece of music in Star Wars, like the one, and it is because it is like four different songs in one.
Mm-hmm.
And it tricks you a little bit if you don't know the context, which like no one doesn't, but like if you separate that from your brain for a second, if you don't know the context of the movie, it almost does make you feel like this is your team. You should be like okay, we're being saved almost,
Mm-hmm.
like it's but like with the way that it starts, like it's definitely got an intro that is saying, all right, heads up, something's happening. And then once it starts, it feels like, oh, we're being saved. But then when you have the context of whose theme this is, what's going on when it kicks in, you have the literal opposite of like responsive. Oh, we're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay, well, this is horrible. And it's chilling. And it's so awesome. I think that's like such a great mark of a beautifully written piece of music that you can literally make it mean something, two completely contrasting things, which light and dark,
Mm-hmm.
the theme of like everything. It's such an interesting piece of work because it can do that. And then in the middle, there's all the sprinkles of the different. There's the juxtaposition of the quiet parts and then the big parts and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. Like it's a beautifully constructed piece of work. I will also say, um, the Rogue One soundtrack is really interesting. And I had watched Rogue One a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed it for the first time then, or not soundtrack, but, like, the score, I noticed it then, and I was just sort of like, "I never really paid attention to this." And I think when I started after that, I started thinking about scores and other things that didn't really register to me, and, like, I'm like, "Was there music in Kenobi?"
Mhm.
You know? Like, there's just sort of stuff like that where I was like, I was really focused on the action. Was there music in this? Like, outside of theme songs, and, like, I know Ludwig Göransson did, like, pretty much all of the music for a lot of the series and stuff like that, and he is such a chameleon of a producer, like, he's the I could go on a whole tangent about him, but he is, a very, very, very brilliant producer, and I'm pretty sure he works with, analog instruments, and I don't think he does very much digital stuff. Don't quote me on that, but
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure most of his stuff, or that might have just been some one-offs or something, but I get, big, analog vibes from him, but, I think it's a great sign almost
Mhm.
sometimes if the music doesn't jump out and instead it just serves the scenes that it's in.
Mhm.
So if you can walk away from something and said, "Wow, that had a really great score," like, that's great. But I also think if you don't notice the score, that's really good too, because that just means it was accenting moments the way it was intended to. It's a problem when you're like, "Man, I don't know what was going on with the music in that thing, but, like,
Mhm.
like, the action scenes are great, like, oh, all the, like, but I wish the music was different, man." But yeah, no, I think, um realistically speaking, personally speaking, I have an affinity for the Imperial March for that reason. I know it's a super generic answer, probably incredibly disappointing, but,
No.
but no, I could get really nerdy about that song because, yeah, it's a really good one. Um It was really fascinating hearing what, of course, they were gonna come up. Galactic Empire, the
Mhm.
Star Wars metal band, what they did with a lot of the themes. They did, the Mandalorian theme, and they did, the Obi-Wan theme. Um, I think those were the only 2 official, like, show themes they did, but then they also did the 20th Century Intro, they did the Star Wars initial song, or, like, intro song,
Mhm.
um, and then they did, the Victory Celebration song,
Yep.
and I think there's something really telling about the original piece of work that you could translate it into a genre like metal, and it's not just like, "We're just gonna make this guitar music," but it's, like, fully, um like, almost prog adjacent, deedle deedle, like, 6 string, like, how many strings does your bass have, dude? Because did you have a 6 string bass for that? You
Mhm.
know? Like, kinda stuff, and having blast beats in Star Wars songs, there's, like, a lot of stuff like that that you wouldn't think would translate from some of these songs. It just God, you need an incredible original piece of work to create something that's as good as that,
Mhm.
when it's being covered, and that has its own identity that much when it's covered. I am rambling.
You're fine. But we're getting to, and we're gonna stay in that same vein for your surprise mystery box question. I
Uh,
had two, and I wasn't sure which one I wanted to do, but I think this one will be a bit more fun for you because I got a Star Wars character randomizer, and what it's gonna be is it's gonna give you a random character, and then I want you to assign an instrument to them.
ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So the first one, hilariously enough, was Darth Vader.
Ooh, Vader. Um, well, see, I was gonna say vocals because he's got, like, center stage frontman energy. Um But when Palpatine shows up, he steps to the side. So I think I'm gonna give him lead guitar
Okay. Okay.
and like metal lead, deedle 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 type guitar, uh, to Darth Vader. I think.
All right. All right. Next, Ray Skywalker.
I think I'd put her on drums. I think she'd be a drummer. Um, she doesn't strike me as some like aesthetically like you would want to put her, like, oh hey, sing. But no, she has drum energy, especially with her staff. I think
Hmm.
that conjures images of a drummer for me. And she's got this like quiet kind of leadership to her almost also too. And that's
Hmm.
something that I've noticed that a lot of drummers kind of have going to, where they're like this sort of um sometimes they have to step up and wrangle everyone and they don't even like realize it. But that's not their main job. They also
Hmm.
cause a lot of chaos. And I think that's kind of a great explanation for Ray. Like she's gonna stick out no matter what because of who she is. So
Hmm.
she's kind of like Phil Collins as a drummer,
Hmm.
rather than like just like any drummer. She could go solo, but she'd rather like, she loves playing drums. She's Dave Grohl.
You said Dave Grohl. I was about to say Travis Barker.
Yeah, but he's not, he's not hopping on the and singing, but
Yeah.
like, it's like she could be a singer, she could be a front man, but
Hmm.
instead she's on the skins.
Hmm. Yep. This next one should be interesting. Klieg Lars.
Do we even know this man like that? He's a tour
No, we don't.
manager. He's a tour
He's the tour
manager.
manager.
Yeah.
uh, I the picture didn't load. Given the name,
Oh, that's a great sign.
I think this is the guy that Obi-Wan talks to on Utapau when he lands, where he's just like, they're on the top floor, thousands of battle droids.
Sound guy.
Sound guy. All right. Oh, this one, Lando's main man, Lobot.
A tech of some sort. Um, Probably. Yeah, I'll give him tour manager too.
Okay. Okay. All right. Everybody's worst Jedi, Kia de Mundi.
Venue owner.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees? Uh, I'm gonna give you two more. Bosk, Scaly Lizard Man.
I think he'd have some pretty sick vocals.
Yeah.
You'd be
Okay.
surprised.
Nope. No, I'm not gonna do it. And oh, and then the last one, my favorite Jedi, Plo Koon.
Um, he's he's like a front man, like a one man band kind of. He could be like he's like Trent Reznor.
Hmm.
So he's singer, but he has like a band with him because he doesn't want to be alone. And, he wants to help his buddies out, but he very easily could play any instrument, um, and could like do all the everything himself, but he's just oh, what a guy.
We need more Plo Koon.
We do need I was gonna say Prince originally, by the way. Um, but I was like, I don't know if we're gonna get Plo Koon hitting splits and
Oh no, we might. He might rock the 8-inch heels and perform Purple Rain in the rain and a wet stage at the Super Bowl. Like it'll happen.
yeah, no, but yeah, no, he definitely has the energy of a really interesting sort of so like a dark but like positive but dark frontman. So like Trent Reznor post life turnaround.
Okay.
So like, like this guy where he knows who he is, knows what he wants, and you know, that's Plo Koon. Plo Koon is Trent Reznor.
All right. Well, thank you, Nidra, for coming on to the show. This was a lot of fun. It's always fun talking with you.
Yeah, I could play that game for hours, turns out.
I'm sure it'd be a lot of fun. Maybe I do it just a Star Wars music special with you and a couple other the musicians I know, and we're just like, all right, let's make the Star Wars band, let's make the Star Wars orchestra.
Oh my god, I would actually love that.
You know what? I'm gonna just write that down so if we can
Okay,
do
write
that
that
because
down,
it
write
sounds
that
like a lot
down.
of fun. Write it down, write it down. But before we go, where can the people find you and hear all of your fantastic thoughts?
Um, you could check an archive of my fantastic thoughts on TikTok. Nidra loves cosplay. And and also on Instagram, Nidra loves cosplay as well. And I'm currently ranting and raving about various Star Wars things and music things on Twitter. Nidra loves Jedi.
Well, thank you again for coming on to the show. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Um,
No, thank you for having me.
oh, of course. Long time coming. Long time coming.
Oh yeah. Let's
Uh,
keep it up.
yes. Uh, so everybody, make sure you go check out Nija's content. Give her some, show her some love, and give her support. And remember, until next time, there are more of us.